Hey. Hey, you there. Yeah, you. Yeah, I see you down there. I see you. Don't act like I can't see what you're doing down there on that beach. Howdy, y'all. How's it going? This is Wes, and welcome to another Final Fantasy XIV stream. So, no cam today. I feel and look like garbage. So, yeah, we're just gonna we're gonna do it the old school way. Yeah, so I haven't streamed in a couple days, and you know I start a new job tomorrow, so it's going to be a little bit weird coming up for the next week or so. But you know we'll try and fit some streams in here, you know, here and there. I don't know. It depends on how I look. My concealer is out, and I have to like order some more. So yeah, we'll just kind of take it as it comes. But I wanted to stream tonight, and I wanted to say hello. So hi, how y'all doing? You have a good weekend? You have a good 6.3 housing patch? That's kind of what we're going to talk about today, and I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a postmortem, kind of discuss you know a couple things that that we've seen on Twitter out and about. I know Zepla was commenting on it a little bit earlier, and just you know just kind of hang out, just talk a little bit, about what's going on in the world of housing. It's been a while since I last did my housing video. That was way before the lottery system was ever implemented. Obviously, we've had a couple rounds of new wards since then. So there's been a lot to talk about. You know, it's a little tricky trying to discuss it because there are so many differing opinions on it. You've got the devs, you've got the players, you've got factions within the players, but I thought we'd just kind of talk a little bit about where things stand, do a little bit of an update to the last video, and kind of go from there. Then maybe a little bit later, I was thinking about maybe doing a little bit of a Q&A, maybe a little bit of a discussion on how to build housing for you guys that did end up winning one and want to know what to do with it. Mine would be more like roleplay specific, but you know, there's all sorts of different ways to build a house and have some fun with it. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do tonight. Let me hop in here real quick, get some errands done, and then we'll kind of go from there, shall we? Okay, so I was lucky enough to win my relocation from my old place. You know, if you've been watching my streams fairly regularly, you probably remember my old spot in Shiro, and I have moved to Beachfront, so I'm very happy about it. I don't ever really anticipate moving you know, it's one of those situations where if a medium pops up, I might bid on it, but I obviously don't have enough gil to buy a medium right now. I don't really necessarily want a large. I feel like that's too much space for the number of items you're allowed to put in it, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. You know, unless a medium opens up, you can safely assume that this is going to be my home for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, we'll come back in here and take a greater look around here in just a little bit. But we need to maybe go to an aetheryte somewhere and kind of see what's going on with all of the other wards. But yeah, you know, this place, you can safely assume that if you ever see my house demolished and I didn't move, then I'm probably dead. That's really the only way to describe how happy I am with it. You know, nice beachfront, a few small steps, but I can peer over and look at what everyone is doing out there. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. This is one of the new wards. It's Shiro 27 here on Balmung, and it's been a lot of fun. We've had a fairly active ward chat, people having a lot of fun with their new houses, people, you know, talking with each other and hyping each other up, giving each other suggestions. We've started a roving gang, so can't really complain about it. I think this is going to be my home for the foreseeable future. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with it at this point. I did a little bit of redecorating both inside and outside. It was a nice excuse to finally get around to redoing all of this. I've talked about it on stream a billion times before, but you know, when you relocate, you have everything reset. It all goes into storage. So yeah, it was time. You know, I really needed to redo everything inside. The stages that were making up the floor and just weren't working out. So I've made it into more of a traditional bathhouse on Balmung. It is open occasionally. You might see it pop up in Party Finder or something like that. But yeah, so it was a nice excuse to get in here, try out some of the new items. There have been a ton of new items since I last redid anything inside, so that was a nice surprise. And yeah, just enjoy having a venue that I'm finally happy to bring other people into. So that was my experience with 6.3. Sorry about that. But, you know, one of the big things that I noticed during everything going on was that for being a beachfront property in Shiro, it seems like things are evening out. There were only 3 or 4 bids on this one. So either people are really starting to focus more on mediums and larges, or we are finally getting to the point where housing is finally meeting demand. You know, there is always going to be a few people, I think, that do miss out, but even now, there are still quite a few houses that have not been claimed yet. So we still have a couple of days. Who knows what'll happen by the 24th, but the overall landscape that I'm seeing is that you're starting to get fewer and fewer bids on any individual plot. There's still going to be multiple. You're still going to have a few issues here and there. But at least on smalls, it's starting to finally look like it's getting to the point where if you want a house, you can get one. Now, bear in mind, this is just on Balmung, but being one of the largest servers in the game, and definitely one of the most active when it comes to housing in the community, I think that's a fairly good sign. So we are slowly starting to move in that direction. I think maybe another round of housing wards in the future might finally stabilize things. After all of these years, if you want a house, you should be able to get one here, hopefully in the near future. Maybe some exceptions being on Balmung, or you know, some of the big servers over in like EU or JP. Like I don't know how the situation is over on Tonberry, for example, because that's another really massive server. But at least on Balmung, it is starting to even out. So if we go over here and take a look at the wards, you'll see that there's still quite a few houses that have popped up. Not just the new wards, but, you know, people relocating from the old ones. So like my old house is now up for sale for the next round. Yeah, so we're finally getting there. Now, like I said, it could be for multiple reasons. It could be, again, people moving up to mediums. It could be this is just Shiro, and maybe Shiro is a lot less popular than I thought it was going to be. But for the most part, I mean, you can see there's still quite a few houses available in various wards out and about. This is the FC only ward. Obviously, quite a few there if you are looking to start an FC anytime soon. But even starting to go into some of the old wards, you're starting to see some reloads pop up. Housing demos back, so I'm sure a couple of these might be from the housing demolition. So yeah, that's kind of the lay of the land. You know, if we go back to Limsa, let's go take a look at Mist and kind of take a look at what things are looking like there. It might be a completely different situation. You know, Mist is probably, I would say, the most popular. You know, nice beachfront properties down there. A lot of stuff going on. Let's see here. Yeah, so still, even in the new wards, got a medium up for sale there, a couple smalls. Yeah, so it's a little bit more packed than Shiro, but there's still a couple out and about. And if it's looking like this on Mist, you can probably safely assume that, like, Ul'dah and the Goblet probably got quite a few more over there. Unless people are just giving that a look because it's the Goblet and they know it's going to be empty, right? So, yeah, so there you have it. Now, bear in mind that when I say things are evening out, that doesn't mean that there's still not problems. And that's something that we're going to discuss a little bit today, too. You know, I know Zeppla was talking about some of the harassment issues a little bit earlier on Twitter. And a few other things out and about that we kind of need to talk about, right? So, you know, housing as it is, it's still kind of a tricky situation. There's a lot of debate back and forth about what to do with it. I think the biggest call right now is probably for instance housing, so that everyone that wants one can get one, right? Now, I've talked about it a little bit on stream before, and bear in mind that it's a very biased opinion because obviously I'm on a roleplay server, right? I've never been a huge fan of instance housing. A lot of that comes from my experience with what happened with garrisons and WoW, and how it absolutely decimated the role-playing scene. Now, they did implement it in a very different way than what most traditional instance housing is. So, like most instance housing, what you would do is, like, you might still have the ward like this, but when you go up to a house, you click on it, and then there would be like a whole listing of houses available to enter, any that are open, similar to what apartments do. Apartments are instance housing, right? So you go up to it, click on a list, and see what's available to enter at the time. So say you were hosting an RP venue, you would just add your instance number or whatever to your party finder listing, right? Now, again, I'm not the biggest fan of that for a couple of reasons. First of all, at least on the RP servers, the wards do get pretty active. Now, it's not necessarily like, oh, an everyday thing where you're running out and about. Like, I haven't seen anyone on this stream so far, for example, right? But there are a lot of events that do take place in these wards. You've probably seen them on other streamers' Twitches and whatnot as well, right? You know, big beach parties and whatnot. So in that regard, wards are pretty important. You know, I've seen everything from people just hanging out, you know, around outside of a house once the club is shut down, just like in real life, you know, bar shuts down, everyone kind of hangs around on the sidewalk and whatnot. And I've seen all the way up to, you know, blitzball tournaments in the Goblet because of the pools that they have down there, right? So the wards are pretty important to the RP scene, and being able to see the outside of a person's house is a fairly major part of that. You know, most RP does take place inside, but there's still a lot that can happen outside as well, depending on the venue. So I wouldn't want too much instance housing for that regard. But the other thing is because of, again, what I remember seeing with garrisons. Now, for WoW, what you had to do is if you were going to hold an event in your garrison, you actually had to physically invite people to your party so that they could zone in to see, because of phasing, your garrison, right? So it wasn't really true instance housing, it was more like phased housing. But it was a little bit different, and because of that, you you basically it killed the RP scene for a long time. People would have events in their garrisons, but if you weren't there in time for the invite or it hit the cap, or mostly people just didn't want to join an instance of something, right? Or for whatever reason that happens to be. But walk up RP, just casual role playing, it was hurt quite a bit by garrisons. You know, if you were part of a guild or a large group of people that had regular happenings inside an instance, you know, you probably liked it quite a bit. But if you're like me that doesn't have an FC, or you more enjoy the walk up kind of stuff, it was very difficult to try and get into some of these groups and just enjoy casual roleplay, right? People wanted to seclude themselves more than anything. You know, that's kind of the thing with a lot of roleplay is it's, for as much as it's about socializing, it's also very introverted at the same time, and people kind of like to box themselves into their groups occasionally. So, you know, if you allow people to do that, then it does make the casual socialization aspect of it, you know, does make it a little bit harder. Now, there's reasons people do like to do that. Maybe they're being harassed or something like that, and the instance housing, the phase housing would make that a little bit easier to avoid. I completely understand that. So, you know, there's a little bit on both sides of it. Do you want the open socialization and you know, inclusiveness of having a large group of strangers come in and have a good time, or do you want the privacy available to something like instance housing, right? So it does get a little bit tricky. Overall, I'm not a huge fan of the instance stuff for those reasons. It's also, you know, fairly common when you look at, you know, the big roleplay servers. You very rarely see anyone hosting events in apartments, and I think a large part of that is the instanced aspect of it. It just doesn't feel the same walking up to an apartment building and then clicking which room number you want to go into. I don't know why. It's just a weird little psychological thing when it comes to a lot of role players, but being able to see the actual venue you're entering plays a major part in the mindset of going in for roleplay, right? So, yeah, now we'll get to apartments here in a second, but there's a couple other reasons that could be why that's the case too. So, you know, bear in mind this isn't a catch-all. This is just things that I've noticed, you know, personal opinions, that kind of thing. You talk to a couple other role players, you might get other ideas. But yeah, you just don't really see too many venues open when it comes to apartment buildings, and I do think the instance aspect of it is a large part of it. Now, that said, if they do decide to move to instance housing in the future, who knows? You know, things like that could change fairly quickly. I think most people, the role play is the most important thing, so whatever they happen to do, they're going to deal. And bear in mind as well that all of this is kind of specific to role play servers. When you're talking about, you know, Aether or Primal or something like that, the housing situation over there can be very, very different. So you'd have to have kind of a little bit of a different discussion. So most of what I'm going to be talking about is kind of specific to these servers. They are some of the largest servers in the game, so I think it is a fairly decent way to approach housing. But it's not a catch-all, so just kind of bear that in mind. But, you know, when it comes to the apartments and things, you know, I think the biggest call for that is just expand the apartments. I don't know why they haven't. I don't know if they've discussed this in live letters or anything like that, if there's some technical issues involved with it. But, yeah, I think you would see people using apartments quite a bit more and using instance housing a little bit more if you had the ability to expand it. You know, it's hard to host a venue in one room. That's really the big thing with it, is you have to get super creative with it, and we'll kind of talk about that when I do the role play housing guide here a little bit later on in the stream. But yeah, I think if you had more than one room, if you were able to expand things a little bit, then you might actually see the apartments getting used a little bit more. So that could change. You know, ultimately, like I said, I'm not a big fan of instance housing, but if they did decide to implement it, I'll deal. We'll figure it out. I think the bigger issue at this point is just how would they even do that? You know, you'd be talking about taking all of the data from all of these wards and having to merge them together into one large server or one large open ward. I can't even imagine, with all of the issues they've had just expanding inventory slots and then expanding, your armory chest, I don't even want to think about how difficult it would be to try and convert everything into instance housing. So, Yoshi P said multiple times that he likes the wards and he likes the neighborhood aspect of it. But I think maybe there's also quite a bit of technical stuff that they'd have to deal with trying to do adjust to that kind of system as well. So, for right now, I think it's pretty safe to assume that the wards as they are probably going to stay the way that they are. But who knows what they've got going on in the future? Who knows what's going to happen, once, PlayStation 4 support ends, little things like that. There's a lot of different factors that could come around when it comes to 7.0. And, they have been expanding their technology and their base code quite a bit over just about every expansion. So that could be something in the pipeline, could be something they're trying to figure out. But for right now, we'll just have to kind of assume that this is the way that it's going to be for a while. Here, let me start a Q&A for you guys. That way, if you're just hopping into the stream, or you have some questions about, it can really be about anything with housing or role playing in particular. But yeah, I'll start a little Q&A here so you guys have something to kind of look at and come up with some questions in that and things like that. Okay, ask questions about. There we go. We'll go ahead and start the Q&A. Why not? Why not? So yeah, let's kind of talk about some of the other things though. So, I'm obviously pretty happy with the way things have gone, and the let's see, trying to figure all this stuff out. And there we go. Here we go. Live chat. All right. This is like my first Q&A, so bear with me. So that said, I do hope that most everyone who got a house wanted one. If not now, then hopefully the next round starting here tomorrow, I guess. It does seem to be getting a little bit easier if you just want a house. Now, mediums and larges, there are still quite a few issues. So that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, is something that Zeppla kind of touched up on as well, is it's a combination of people hoarding houses and then just the toxicity when it comes to especially mediums and larges. And it doesn't even seem to be necessarily FC specific, although that does seem to be a major part of it. The issues that arise when multiple people start bidding on a medium or large, and some of the harassment that follows. Obviously that's not cool. I mean, there's absolutely no excuse for it. I mean, it's a lottery system. If you lost, you lost. Completely RNG at this point, so there's no way for someone to have stolen your house just because you bid on it and they won, right? So yeah, I mean, that's something that needs to be addressed. I don't really know how they would approach something like people owning multiple houses. So when it comes to the multiple house thing, like you go on Mateus and they have the issue with a couple of the wards being owned entirely by one person. They're kind of infamous at this point, right? So if you don't know how that works, that's not one FC buying multiple houses. Now, it might have been back in the day when they were grandfathered in, if it's a particularly old server. You used to be able to buy multiple houses with an FC or a private. Nowadays, if you see that kind of thing happening, what it is it's not one account. It's multiple accounts being used by the same person, and then they just share the FC tag. FC tags, the little 5-letter thing you see at the end of everyone's name, that is not unique. You can have multiple FC tags with the same thing, essentially. So yeah, it is one person, but it's not one account. These things are already locked to one per server. So what they're doing is they're buying multiple accounts and then placing bids on each of those accounts. So yeah, they are spending about 30 accounts worth of subs every single month to keep those houses active. It's going to be an issue in pretty much anything that has real money transactions in it, right? You've got a lot of people who are essentially, no other way to describe it, they're essentially trust fund kids that have more money than they could possibly spend in real life. They're very, very rich. Richer than I will ever be as a very small YouTube streamer, right? So, yeah, to them, spending 30 subs worth of money every single month is not an issue. It's yeah, just standard practice for them. It's the same people that drop, $100,000 on Diablo Immortal, right? So there's not really a whole lot that can be done about it. If they are using the same service account, one thing that they could do is potentially lock it to one per service account rather than just one character per account. If that makes sense, lock it to one Square Enix account. There would still be ways around that. It's very easy to make multiple Square Enix accounts, but it would be more hassle for those people. Having to log into each and every single one of them every single time, right? And the other thing is to just finally start actioning it. Have the GM step in and say, hey, you get to choose one of these. The others have to go away. We're demolishing them and opening them up. It's one of those things where, they're spending a lot of money on the game, so it's pretty clear that Square's very cautious about wanting to lose that money. But I really can't think of any other way to handle it. If they are using multiple accounts, it's not like they are doing anything, I think, that's immediately actionable. It'd have to, have a little bit more investigation for it, have a little bit more reasoning behind it, I think. But they could absolutely physically go in and start dealing with that kind of thing, right? But I think that's really kind of the biggest salty point for a lot of people, at least on the roleplay servers. I don't know how it is on the new data centers. I don't know how it is on Dynamis. I haven't heard too much about Dynamis being super active. So it could be possible that there's just a lot of wards and a lot of houses that didn't have any bidders whatsoever. So it might have been a little bit easier for these people to come in and do that. But yeah, I think something does need to be done. It's just a matter of figuring out how they're going to do it more than anything else. Trying to figure out the justification for it and how they can try and prove it when they are using multiple accounts. So they're technically, like, quote unquote, technically not doing anything against the TOS, even though it's very clear what they're doing. So, the Square's team would have to get a little creative with that, but I think something does need to be done about it. Probably sooner than later, unless they find a bunch of servers sitting around to add as many wards as they want. I really don't see any other situation. But in regards to the toxicity and harassment and that kind of thing, that's something that is actionable, and I think that's something that Zeppela was talking about on her Twitter a little bit earlier, is people complaining, oh, you stole my house, and harassing people, or like, because 4 people from the same FC bid on a plot and then the 5th random person wins it, that somehow the FC gets mad. I mean, that's the way the lottery system was intended to work. That's why it was made, was to try and keep things as equal as possible. There's no favoritism, there's no whoever pressed the button fastest kind of thing, and yeah, it gives everyone the opportunity. So overall, I mean, I do like the lottery system, but the harassment and the toxicity absolutely has to stop. So when it comes to that kind of thing, if you see it happening, if it's happening to you, feel free to report it. I mean, it's the only way anything is going to happen. It is against the TOS to tell someone that they cannot bid on an open plot. I believe it was one of the straight up examples that they had in the game, in the TOS, and that little FAQ guide that they put out a couple months back, right? So, absolutely, that kind of thing. Just we as a community should not put up with it. If you see it happening, if it's happening to you, 100% report it as the really the only thing that you can do is make sure that something is being done about it. And obviously, if the GMs aren't getting reports, then they don't know that it's happening. They don't have the names, anything like that. So, yeah, you absolutely be vigilant about that kind of thing. But it does seem to be something that's happening mostly over medium and large plots. You know, smalls are just kind of like whatever. But with the medium and large plots, that seems to be the big pain point. And you know, with that kind of thing, I really don't know how they would handle it. Only thing I can think of is like if they do add another housing district, like if they add moon housing eventually or something, right? Is to make sure that there's more medium and larges in those wards comparatively, right? That's something that you just really can't get around without just having more of those plots available. I can't really think of any other any other way around it. But yeah, I mean, people fighting over mediums and larges, I think, is just absolutely ridiculous. No one owes anyone else anything, right? It is a video game. It is up to the roll of the dice. No one is owed a no one is owed a large when it's open bids. Now, again, that's something that could be solved with instance housing. It is something that they could take into account. It is something that could be fixed a little bit by having larger apartments, right? But yeah, for right now, it's no one is guaranteed anything, right? So yeah, I mean the weirdness over large plots and medium plots is just it's wild to me. Is this what it's like in rich person land? Is this how the is this how opulent living is supposed to be, right? Is that what rich people just fight about all day? Is who is owed the large house? I just don't get it. So yeah, I mean, if you see that happening, if it's happening while you're bidding, if it's happening after you've won a plot and people are harassing you or something like that, yeah, just report them. Make it known to Square's GMs. That's really the only thing that we can do. I saw a tweet that like someone won a plot and then all of the angry FC that had bid on it started going by and using the slap emote on them or something like that. Just it's ridiculous, man. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And it's wild to me that like if you have an FC like that, right? Why would you not put in different bids to different locations? Like I know that you want to kind of stack the deck to a certain point if you have like a particular plot that you really really like. But if you're an FC that just doesn't have a house period, why would you not spread that around to a bunch of different plots? Especially because this last round, at least, there just weren't as many bids. You know, like I said, it seems like it's evening out. So I feel like you would be more likely to win one if you had bids on multiple plots, if you just didn't have an FC house, right? Now, obviously, if you're trying to bid on that favorite large, you know, you're trying to upgrade for a relocation or something like that to a bigger house, that doesn't help that much, right? But it just doesn't make sense to me, right? You know. But you know, some of these guys, they're people that want the multiple houses or whatever for subs or something like that. You know, I don't know. There's a whole thing with it. But yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on where housing is at. You know, I think it is slowly getting a little bit better. There's still some work that needs to be done. But overall, I think people seem a little bit happier this round. I haven't noticed quite as much salt. I mean, there's always going to be salt when it comes to the housing system, and every time new districts are added. But I feel like just from what I have noticed, you know, sifting through the hashtags and whatnot, the salt is it's diminished. There's definitely not as much as there used to be or has been in the past. You know, the first time this happened, especially because of the random error code of no one winning a house, right? It doesn't seem as bad as it was last time. So hopefully we're slowly getting to the point where if you want one, you can get one. I haven't taken a look at the apartments to see if all the apartments are full again yet. You know, on my alt, my Sage, I think I got like the last apartment that was open on Balmung before they opened the new ward, so I don't know. I don't really know what the new ones are looking like. Let's go journey up and see if it's full or not in Khoton, what is it? Kobai-Goten. Okay. Here we go. But yeah, you know, there's still some issues though, and I mean, I don't have all the answers, that's for sure. If I had all the answers, I wouldn't be working retail, right? I'd be working for for Square Enix. But you know, there's some things that can be done, but overall, I think it is slowly improving, right? Okay, yeah. See, it looks like we're finally getting a lot more apartments too. So you know, if you didn't get a house, it looks like the apartments are still available as well. Or if you just straight up don't care about a house and just want a place to plop down for a while, right? You know, I think one of the bigger things that they could do is try and make it easier for people to farm inside an apartment. You know, for a lot of regular servers, that's really all they use the houses for, is they just have a home base with all of the merchants inside for, you know, their errands and that kind of thing. And then they use the farm system. They use the crops, and that's really all they use the housing for. They don't really decorate it too much, right? So yeah, it's something that that's something I think could be pretty easily addressed through the apartment system. Try and find a way to make it easier for people to farm and get those Thavnarian onions and that kind of thing. I think you would see a lot more people happier with the apartment system if they added that. I think out of anything, that is probably the biggest complaint that I normally see, more than anything else, is the lack of farming. I think if they could do that, if they could find a way to add an extra room to the apartments, or pay money to expand it, I think that would probably solve a good 75% of the issues people have with the housing system, more than anything else, right? So yeah, I mean, if you guys have any questions about the housing system, about the current state of things, where things are at, feel free to ask in the QA, and we'll try and take a look. But I wanted to kind of go into the I wanted to go into, like, you know, you want a house, and what do you want to do with it now? So how do you decorate, and what kind of things should you be looking for? So for this part, this will mostly be roleplay specific, but there are so many different ways to decorate and work on the interior of a house, right? So, you know, probably the big thing with a lot of people is they want something that looks pretty and looks nice in screenshots and that kind of thing. So when you start looking at a house and you start kind of debating what you want to do, you kind of have to decide what kind of house you're going for. And do you want something that will be an actual venue to hang out with your friends in, or even potentially be an actual roleplay venue that you advertise for and open to the public? Or do you want something that is going to be more for screenshots, a place that's just kind of a personal area for you to hang out in, that kind of thing? So I'm going to show you this house right here. I don't know what they are in real life. So, they were very nice, came into my house and checked it out, so I came in and gave them a couple likes as well. This is a good G-posing house. They did a very, very good job with this when it comes to the G-posing stuff, right? So when you want G-posing, you have a little bit more options in terms of creativity and that kind of thing. There's more that you can do with it because you have a little bit more freedom. So the bottom down here is still fairly open, but it's kind of got some segmented off stuff. And once you know what you're doing with your G-pose in your camera, you can add like miniature rooms like this. You can kind of break things off and separate things into all sorts of different little areas. You know, there's a few. I'm not advocating this, but there are a few, you know, illegal tools out there to help you with this kind of thing, or there's all kinds of glitch guides and whatnot if you want to be able to float things and make like a second story within a story, that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, you have a few different options as far as that kind of thing is concerned. But the big thing with this is I don't think, here we go. You can see that they floated and made it a second living level on one floor. This is very cool. So this would be a great house for G-Pose. You know, this is the kind of house that you would normally see on FF14 housing snaps. It's all in Japanese over there, but you can use Google Translate for it if you want to upload some things. But yeah, these are the kind of places that you would see on Twitter, and you know, some of them probably maybe hired an actual interior designer to do that kind of thing. So if you're just looking to get some screenshots of your character and have a nice little venue to kind of look at, make it feel like home, this is a great example right here. I mean, they did a fantastic job on this house. However, I will say this. This is probably not a great role-playing venue. The downstairs area would be, but the upstairs area with all of the many nooks and crannies, probably not a good role-playing venue. This is very much a G-posing venue. So we're gonna go over to my place. Now, I'm not an interior designer. My house is fairly basic, but I tried to make it look pretty. I tried to go with a unique theme. There's still a few things that I want to add to it. Just kind of spice it up a little bit. Just really kind of round things out. Try to find a nice rug to really tie the room together, man, right? So when it comes to roleplay venues, there are a couple of things to kind of keep in mind when you're building a house. First and foremost is this space. I've talked about it multiple times, but here we're going to go into our actual Q&A about what makes a good role-playing venue, right? If you're going to be bringing in, you know, strangers or opening it to the public and that kind of thing. To me personally, and everyone will be a little bit different on this, but to me personally, it comes to the space. You know, role-playing is about really being able to interact and socialize with other people. And a very, very big part of that, to me, is being able to see people. You need to be able to see who's in the room, who's open to, who looks like they don't have anyone to talk to, who looks like they could use someone to talk to. Where are the big parties at? You know, if there's a big group in there that looks like they're having a good time and you want to go talk to them, you know, you need to be able to see that kind of thing. And the other thing is, when you actually start getting into conversation, you need to be able to have enough space to be able to look at and talk to that person without worrying about your sight line getting blocked, right? You know, you don't want to be trying to role play and then, you know, you get a big wall like this or something like that. You don't want to get interrupted with your camera. You know, no one, to be honest, really likes being zoomed in all the way like this, trying to have a conversation. I think where I normally keep my camera seems to be about average for a lot of people. You know, everyone's got personal preference. Maybe some people like to do it in first person. I don't know. But for me personally, I like, you know, staying about this far back. And I like being able to look around. I like being able to read the room, see where the layout is. If I'm looking for the bar, be able to immediately see it, those kind of things. So for me, a good role-playing venue, it can be tricky. You've got to have enough space to be able to see everyone, to make sure that you're not interrupting your camera or blocking it with anything, while still making it look nice and look like a very interesting and cool venue. It can be hard to make a good role-playing space. You know, there's a lot of clubs. I'm not a big fan of clubs because most of them are just, they're very empty, and they've got a big stage on one side and maybe a bar over on the other, right? But for the most part, a lot of these clubs are just a big empty floor with some stuff around it, right? I like being able to fill out the room a little bit more. I like venues like bathhouses like this that I've made, where there's a lot of stuff that you can do, a lot of places to sit, but it's still open enough that you can move your camera around and look around and that kind of thing. So it'll be a little bit different depending on the venue. A tavern will obviously have a very different layout than this, versus like a dojo that we were just in, versus versus, you know, I've seen a couple bookstores. Bookstores are a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to make a good role-playing venue, it's really about managing your space, giving it enough to look at and enough to be interesting, appealing to people, while still offering the space to actually roleplay. And that can be very tricky. Now, when we go upstairs, this is probably too open. Like, I wouldn't mind, I might float some lofts up here so there's like an upstairs sitting room or something like that. But in terms of the overall layout, there's not like a lot of walls or anything like that blocking the view. There's you know, you got my vendors here. Got my little opening sign, my little welcome sign. That's just an otter screen, right? But, you know, it's maybe too open. It's a bit too tall. You know, if you're going to be adding a lot of stuff and a lot of different items to kind of segment things off in a role-playing venue, it's better to build up than it is to build around, right? I'd much rather have like staircases and an upstairs area than I would a giant screen in the middle of the floor that kind of blocks everything in half, right? For role-play venues anyways. Like I said, if you're doing G-Post stuff, if you're doing the really fancy soft look cottagecore thing for Twitter, do whatever you want, man. Do whatever looks good for the screenshots. But for role-playing, when you're going to have other people in there, it's something you kind of got to keep in mind. So yeah, I find it easier to build up and build lofts and some staircases so there's like a second floor, as opposed to trying to make individual like walls. And the only thing that I added in terms of like miniature rooms was my dressing room right here. And I really only did it because so many people were coming into the bathhouse asking, hey, where's your dressing room? I don't really have one. You just throw your clothes on the floor, right? So this was made due to popular demand, but it is very small. It's not a very good role-playing dressing room. It's just I literally did not have any other space for it. So, you know, sometimes you just kind of got to make do with what you've got. I tried maybe building one over here, but it blocked off that little corner, and I didn't want that. I wanted this to be one big open space. People sit down and be able to really kind of fill out the room as much as they wanted. But yeah, you do go into some bathhouses, and they're a little bit different designs, so they can have a dressing room like in the middle of the floor without it feeling too cramped. But for here, it would just completely kill my vibe. I like the symmetry though. You know, I've always been big on the symmetry thing. I kind of like making things even on both sides as best as possible. But yeah, I mean, there's times that you can follow the rules and times you can break them. This is one of those times you just kind of got to break them. If every other customer is asking you if you have a dressing room, yeah, you probably got to build one at some point. You just kind of got to make a way to make it, right? Make a way to build it. But up here, it's too open. It's just, yeah, this needs something to fill it out. I don't know if maybe I'm gonna float some hanging planters up there or something like that. I still have like 60 slots left or something along those lines, so it's actually a lot less than my last one. You know, you guys remember my last place if you've watched my old streams, and I think a lot of it is because I had the troop stages, you know, sitting down on the floor and turning that into kind of a raised floor area. I don't have that here. So even though I am using fewer items, it feels like such a more well-rounded space. I am so happy with my lounge. I absolutely love it. You know, I think at some point I'm going to come through here and maybe fill out the walls with a little bit more ivy, just really go all in on the botanical theme. But overall, I'm kind of impressed that it took me so few items to make it. So we can definitely fill it out. You know, I think that like if you got 200 slots, use all 200 slots. You don't have to like segment walls and that kind of thing. Add some decoration, you know. Try and just fill out some of the atmosphere, some of the ambiance. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. A lot of little small things. Yeah, you can do things like the liquor bottles and stuffed animals, pillows on the floor, towels. I need to find a stack of towels. I don't exactly know where those are. I see them all the time, and I still have not been able to find them in the preview furnishing list. But that just kind of gives you an idea. Like, those are my overall thoughts on RP housing. Um, just some basics to kind of keep in mind. You got to keep in mind that if you are opening an RP venue, it's a venue that's not made just for you. It's made for anyone that comes in, right? It's made for anyone that wants to come to visit your space. You got to think of them when you are building a space like this. Like, what is their view going to be like? What is their experience going to be like trying to interact with people or interact with the room? How are they going to utilize that space? It's something I think a lot of role players don't necessarily think about, and a lot of house builders don't think about when they're first starting. It's something you kind of got to experience for a few times, because it's going to be immediately apparent when you enter a role-playing venue that's made by a new role player or just isn't made very well. The design itself may be very, very cool and might be extremely screenshot worthy, but you're going to have issues when you're trying to talk with people that you would not have noticed until you've actually done that socializing, right? So, most of my thoughts are just kind of built from experiencing it on my own over the course of several years. Just trying to think of like, hey, what annoyed me when I was trying to roleplay at other venues, and how can I fix that here? That's why I didn't like my old place. I mentioned it a few times on stream, but I used to have those screens that kind of segmented the baths from the sitting areas, and all the sitting areas were kind of facing like towards the wall. I don't know what I was thinking when I made it, man. Like, these were facing the other direction, and they were like up against the bath. Yeah, it was just not a very well designed place. It looked very cool. It looked very pretty, but for role playing, it was just an awful venue. So yeah, I was able to get through here and get rid of the screens. That helped out a lot, and just open the place a little bit more. I still have the pillars. I like the pillars, but they don't necessarily like get in the way when you're looking around. Like, you can sit down here and you can still see the whole room, right? I did not do the whole thing. There's all kinds of little tricks for the baths. I think probably the most common, and I don't know if it's just a role-playing thing or if it's something people do in their normal houses, but you use the hinging sideboards and you like hide them along the sides. You hide them underneath the boards here, so that when you sit, you actually sit on the sides. Just kind of nice. You don't have to like drown yourselves in the water. I don't know why they designed these onsen like this, because Kyra here, when she sits down on the deep end, I mean, she's completely submerged. The poor Lala fell trying to use these. They only have like one option on where they can sit in this whole tub, right? It's just a very weird design. They need to raise that a little bit more, right? So yeah, they have added quite a few. I love these things. I love them. I might add a couple more in here and try and do some glitching to try and get them up a little bit and have just like the whole wall with a nice little waterfall. I love the waterfall partitions, but the big thing for me, at least, is that I feel like they are overused. Like, people are just putting waterfall partitions everywhere. And a lot of venues would have them like in between the tubs and in between the saunas, in addition to like all around the walls. That's too much for me. Like, I like it like when you go into like a really fancy hotel and like right behind the lobby, you'll see this in Vegas sometimes. So like behind the front desk, they have the waterfall, but there's nowhere else in the venue that does. And they might have some fountains or that kind of thing, but it's really that first thing you see when you go into a Vegas hotel, and it's just a big waterfall behind the counter, and then everything else is like nice and regal, but it's not too much. Like, it's super fancy, but they don't overdo it. So that's kind of the vibe that I was going for here. Like, the waterfall partitions behind the bar and only there, that's perfect. That to me screams class. Like that's the kind of thing that like if I was rich, those are the kind of places that I would like to go to, right? I've only been to places like that a couple of times in my life, and it's always been an experience. So that's kind of what I tried to recreate here. If I tried to add them elsewhere, it would be too much. Same kind of with the verdant partitions, even beyond how expensive these have apparently gotten. Like these were so cheap before the new round of wards. You know, they started adding these as rewards from like the scratch off tomes and that kind of thing. And I think you can even solo Arboretum hard nowadays to like try and farm these yourself. So the prices really dropped on them. And then the new wards came in and it's like everyone used one of verdant partitions. I don't mind this top room being like this because I want you to kind of feel like you're walking into a jungle. But if I did it downstairs, it would be too much in addition to the baths. So I think if I did add any more greenery here, it's going to be like ivy curtains. Like you see those ivy curtains up there, or maybe the hanging curtains or the hanging ivy that goes like directly onto the wall. Got a seam there that I need to fix here in a little bit. You know, little things like that. I wish some of them were a little bit larger. Like some of the ivy curtains, let me see if I can bring it up here. Indoor furnishings. Nice. No, preview. There we go. Ivy. I can't spell tonight. Don't judge me, it's like 2 a.m. Okay, so you've got like the ivy mural, right? But it's just not big enough. Yeah, there's not enough ivy. I want more ivy. Like this right here, I like the wall climbing ivy, but you can see it's just that small little rectangle. It's not even a square. It's just a little rectangle. So like I'd have to buy like 50 of these to really round out the walls, right? Maybe they figured because they have the partitions, the verdant partitions, that you don't really need too much ivy. But I think there's a big difference between the wall hanging stuff versus like an entire partition. Like that's just not enough. Maybe I can use it to hide my seam right there, right? Let's see if I can fix that here. Just like very, very. There we go. Very, very faintly try and do it. Like I think it's sitting back just a little bit too much. Like see if I put it there. Yeah, see, it's gonna be off of the wall a little bit. I don't think it'd be super noticeable, but little things like that are kind of nitpicky for me. Like I like them to be nice and even, right? But yeah, see, maybe it's that one that's too far front, right? How we looking there? See, that's even. That is nice and even. See, I'm guessing it must be this wall. It's just like slightly too much. Yeah. Like I said, there's ways you can get around this, so to speak. But we won't talk about those. and who knows? Maybe there's nothing I really can do about that scene. Maybe it's just the nature of the space there, right? I mean, you can do gridlock. It's kind of annoying, but I do occasionally do the gridlock thing. It's a lot of bouncing back and forth. I'll do the gridlock for rotation so I can make sure that it's straight 90-degree angles. And then, yeah, switch it up a little bit when it comes to actually moving things and trying to just kind of get it as even as I can here. Go. Yeah, see, I don't want it to be too far over there. Alright. Yeah, I don't know how that looks. It's fine. We'll deal. I'm not gonna worry too much about it on stream. I'm not gonna build an entire housing design for you guys. Yeah, that's not super fun, is it? So, yeah, but like I said, I mean, that's really That's really all I kind of wanted to talk about today when it comes to the housing stuff. But yeah, we can go do some other stuff. There are a couple mushroom lamps that I wanted to go farm up, but I'm gonna need a lot of gemstones. But yeah, the other good news for you crafters out there, this first couple of weeks, you can make a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money doing all of that. So, a lot of the things that I just kind of ignored for a long time in terms of crafting, some of those housing items, they're going for a lot right now. If you've got some verdant partitions that you're not using, by all means, get in there and reap the rewards. If you're having issues coming up with money or something like that, now is the time. Oh man, that's like way over there, huh? All right, I should be able to make it, huh? It's like 12 minutes away. We've got time. I don't know if I can take on a boss once I'm level sync, but we'll give it a shot. But yeah, I'm gonna farm up some fates a little bit and try and get some gemstones, buy a couple of things. They did add a couple new things when it comes to the rewards for a lot of these allied quests, right? So the big one are some new framers kits. Like I redid finally my adventure plate here. This is the Dream Spinners background that you get from the Pixies. I think you have to be Bloodsworn to get them, and I'm not Bloodsworn with everyone, so like the mounts is usual where most people stop because that's like one level below Bloodsworn, and getting to Bloodsworn just kind of finishes out the storyline if you want. But once you get to Bloodsworn, yeah, they've got some new framers kits and stuff that are really not expensive. They were, I think, 6 of the tribal currencies. Whenever I looked, it really was not bad at all. It was kind of nice. Not gonna lie. Here we go. Fortunately, I don't think I'm gonna get any gemstones. Oh, I did get 6 gemstones from this. Nice, nice. I mean, that's all I'm after, more than anything else. I don't know if that helps my shared fates either. But yeah, when it comes to buying the really important, like, really expensive furniture things, like the mushroom lamp was like 100. It was not cheap at all when it comes to gemstones, but I'm so far behind. I've never finished any of these shared fates in either Shadowbringers or here, so I'm missing all of like the really cool stuff that you get from the city vendors, right? It's so much fate farming, man. But it is something we can try. It is something we can do. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. The problem is I don't really even know what the like main city vendor that you open up after completing everything. I don't entirely know what all it gives you. I thought it was a mount or something like that, right? I need to go back through and take a look. But I just remember being very cool and me thinking, oh, there's no way I'm ever going to get this. But if they're adding a lot of nice items like housing and framer kit things to the gemstone traders for completing tribes, then like yeah, absolutely I'll farm up some of these fates. It's not like I got anything else to do on Kyra. Most of what I've been doing at this point is just role-playing on my alts, that kind of thing. Nothing super fancy going on this past weekend. I did finally get up to 618, I think, on Kyra. So she's slowly getting back up there. You know, I skipped out on doing the hardcore fanatical stuff for a while. But yeah, we finally got her back up to something at least reasonable. Obviously, it's not going to be the 630 or whatever the top end is, but I'm happy with it. You know, it'll make doing that top end stuff a little bit easier if I wanted to hop into some EXs or something like that. I've been hearing a lot of, honestly, kind of negative things about the new EX. Apparently, it's just too easy. You know, I was watching the video guide and it looks like a lot, but I guess, you know, in practice, I could see how it'd be kind of a snooze fest. Yeah, it's kind of like Zodiac, where you just follow the Dorito. There's what is a flame spinner or something like that. That's like the one mechanic you have to pay attention to. I think that's the numbered mechanic, right? If I remember right from the videos. But outside of that, like there's just not a whole lot that you have to worry about. I don't know if it's like going down too fast too or what. But yeah, I genuinely have not heard too many good things about it. Apparently it's nice that like you can farm it pretty easily, and it started dropping 2 of the little relics instead of 1, so you only have to farm it what 50 times if you want the mount eventually. Man, what's going on with these fates? Where are they? Where is everything? Yeah, I guess we can go try another area. I don't know what's going on here. Go to Ilmeg. So yeah, I mean, I might hop in and do a Talking the Red episode or something like that, just kind of catching up to everything. To be honest, there has not really been a whole lot of Talking the Red stuff to talk about because we haven't been touched for the past couple patches. We're too good. We're too perfect. we are the Thanos of classes, you know. We're perfectly balanced. That's us. That's Red Mage life. I mean, I'm not gonna complain about it because I like our status as, you know, God's chosen class, Yoshi P's chosen class, right? But yeah, it unfortunately means not a whole lot in terms of Red Mage content to discuss. Just me showing the fight, I guess. You know, I kind of wonder how things will shake up a little bit later on, if they start adding some new moves or something like that. But I really can't think of any ways to like improve us at this point. You know, we still have a couple of moves that are just kind of there that we don't really need. But you know, outside of that it would just be cleaning things up more than like balance. I genuinely cannot think of anything that like we really desperately need at this point. Let's see here. Yeah, go ahead and don't even need to look at it, right? There we go. What was the move that I was looking at? Yeah, reprise. I don't think I even have reprise on my bars right now, do I? No. I cannot think of more than a handful of times that I've ever pressed reprise. And most of the times I did, it was just like, let's see what would happen. Let's see if it really did anything. So yeah, they could probably get rid of reprise. I can see how some people like are crunching numbers and going, well, actually, it's perfectly useful in this situation that happens 0.02% of the time. But no, in practice, with the way that most of these fights are designed, I cannot think of a situation where I've ever used reprise. Either at the top end, you find ways to fit in a cast anyways during those situations, or it messes up your flow too much to really be worth it. You know, push back your melee combo to something outside of the designated time that you would normally use it. So yeah, that's really the only thing that I can think of really changing, right? So outside of that, I mean, we're in such a good spot. I just really have no complaints about my Red Mage at all. I have no problem not being near the bottom of the charts, but not being near the top. I like being right in the middle, man. I like the fact that we do not have any patch notes on any patch these days. We're just there's no reason to balance us. We're just too good. That's where we deserve to be. All right, how many gemstones am I at now? 61. Okay. I think I I had what, 20 something when I started, so I think I need to do like 5 more fates, something like that, somewhere around there, to buy a new buy another mushroom. They were expensive, man. Like I didn't realize. Like I heard that they were going for a fair amount since the new wards went up, but I didn't realize like why they were kind of pricey. Yeah, it's some farming, man. You know, 100 gemstones for one lamp, and they're not even particularly large lamps. They're kind of small, but they do emit their own glow. So like if you do have a botanical themed house, or you're going for something like that for G-Post stuff, it's a nice little lamp. I can't lie. It's incredibly let's just say it looks like certain parts of a person's anatomy. It gives those vibes, which could be another reason they're going for so much on Balmung. But you know, if you can get past that, they are really nice. Like, it's something that I think I'm gonna try and like maybe hide in other items in my house, in my venue, and make it look really cool. You know, the base pot, it's just like a barrel of moss. It doesn't look like anything fancy, but the mushroom itself with the light that it gives away, it is pretty cool. I can't complain. So I think yeah, it'll look pretty cool if I can like stick that in the middle of some of those verdant partitions, or maybe stick it like hide it halfway out of one of the pots of like bamboo planters or something like that. I think it'll look really cool. It's just I gotta figure out where I'm gonna put it, because I feel like my downstairs area has quite a bit of glow. I feel like it's got enough ambient light, so I might have to take something out or redesign maybe where I've got some of the lights that don't really look like they belong, like some of the, what are they, Hingen Chosen side lights, the big round yellow ones that are mounted to the wall. They give off a nice light, so I kind of liked having them, but maybe they might give off too much, considering I've already got everything underneath those luminous lofts. I love those luminous lofts, by the way. I don't know if the price is inflated on those so much just because so many people are making them. But, yeah, one of my favorite additions in the last couple of rounds of housing merchant stuff. Just very, very cool overall. Oh, man, are we back to these? Didn't we just do this one? What am I at in terms of shared fates for Ilmeg? I feel like not a lot. I feel like Ilmeg is like one of the ones that I barely touched. Here we go. Alright, here we go again. You know, if you guys are on Balmung and want to hop over and join, by all means, say hello. Join in some fate farming while I try and get these gemstones. I will never complain about people making this faster for me. It's pretty rough. You know, I can see why so few people ended up getting this city merchants unlocked. It's something like, what is it, like 300 fates or something like that? I can't remember what the total number was. I think maybe they lowered it a bit with a couple of patches. Like, you look at Tempest and it has the several rounds of fates, right? Okay, open it up. Like, you have to do all of this, and then it unlocks another one of these. I feel like this used to be the case for every single one of them, right? And then, yeah, you can see it's like that for Endwalker, huh? And then maybe I guess they lowered it at some point for older expansions. Yeah, it's so many fates, man. I don't know how people do that all day long. And there are people that are. I mean, there are fate parties, just roaming fate parties, doing these things and just blitzing through them. You know, I guess that's really the only way to make it tolerable is just get with a bunch of other people that are as bored as you are and just want to get through it, right? And I guess that's something that one of the positives that came out of Eureka is Is getting into that mindset of just blasting through these things, huh? You know, it's one of those things that I've kind of ignored. Now that I know that things are unlocked through it, I might go through and finish some of these other tribes that I'm not bloodsworn with, and just try and unlock some more items out and about. I'd have to take a look and see like where all of them are. You know, I don't know if every tribe actually does unlock housing stuff, right? Through the gemstones, but it'll be worth a look. It might give me an excuse to go through and finish some of these that I've been kind of putting off for a long time. Here we go, that should be it. Nice. Alright. But, you know, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do. And it's also one of those things where I can't just get one. Like, just one mushroom lamp. You know me, I like my symmetry, right? So I've gotta farm like another 12 of these things, just to get the amount that I want. Assuming I don't just sell them. Like, for as much as I had starting out, the new housing items ended up being kind of pricey. I spent a fair amount on those excuse me, waterfall partitions, and ooh, too tight to myself. Yeah, I spent a fair amount on those waterfall partitions and the half waterfall oasis thingies. Can't remember what their actual name was. So, like, you guys see my streams, I had about 11 million. You know, some of that was obviously going towards the house. I think that's where most of it went, was the relocation. But, you know, you get the 15% 15% refund or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, I spent a fair amount on this relocation, so I've got to rebuild my coffers somewhat, so to speak. But now that it's done, I mean, I'm pretty happy with everything. That's the nice thing, is like you have to save up all of this money, and it feels kind of bad at first. Like, once you get done with it, once it's finished, like, that's it. You know, once it's done, it's done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Thankfully, there are a few things that I can craft if I just get, like, really annoyed at trying to, like, buy all of this stuff. My issue is I'm not an omni-crafter. So I've got to go through and actually start leveling up my goldsmith, my armor, and my blacksmith. Those are the last ones that I need. The good thing is, if you have a decent amount of money, you can literally level from like 1 to 90 in like 2 hours. It is so easy. So easy to just buy everything off the board and just use lead kits or whatever, right? I think the most expensive part is just honestly the Endwalker stuff. Because for that, you know, you've got the leaves. That is the fastest way to do it. But first of all, you need enough leave tokens. I think it takes somewhere like around 40. It's something like 30 to 40 to go from 80 to 90 in one go. So, you know, that's probably the first thing that you have to worry about. And then yeah, it's a fair amount of gil. I mean, it's a few 100,000, if I remember right. Let's see if I can do this solo. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but we're going to give it a shot. There we go. I'll have to probably take this kind of seriously. Thankfully, my chocobo is so powerful. Taylor Swift up there has really come a long way and is got some pretty powerful heals ready to go. So I haven't had to really worry about Vercure all that much. But yeah, you know, if you're gonna do the leave kit thing, it is pricey. I'm not gonna lie. You can craft everything on your own, but it takes forever to gather everything. And, you know, in addition to that, you might have to use stuff from other crafters. You know, I have a feeling when I get to armor, I'm probably going to have some stuff from Carpenter and whatnot to make some of these items. It is kind of convoluted, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, some of them you have to build like three steps worth of items to make the finished product. You know, you can't just have can't just have your growth formula. You need that growth formula to make another item. And then you have to smash that item into a third item. And then you finally get your finished product, right? So yeah, we'll give it a look. I don't know. With spending so much gil on the house, I don't know how I feel about going through and making a lead kit of everything, but I think having that armor and blacksmith, just finally becoming an Omnicrafter, it's gonna open so many doors that I didn't even realize I had. And yeah. The only other thing that I think would just really kind of round up the things that I want to do is just finally making an FC and getting an FC house. I'm missing out on a lot of opportunity with submarines. You know, I'm not going to be one of those guys that's going to have like 5 or 6 FC houses on multiple accounts just so I can run from one sub to the next, right? I think I would be perfectly fine just having my one submarine. The problem is I don't really know how they work. You know, when my last FC did it, like, I remember we needed at least 4 people to go into the basement or something like that, so we could, like, craft parts of the sub. I don't know if you still have to do that or not. I hope not, because if I did have an FC, it would just be me and, like, a couple alts. I don't know if I could, like, hop in and do all of that all at once. Alright, where are we at on reputation here? Let's take a look at Shadowbringer. So my Katari is really the only thing that's not Bloodsworn at this point, huh? And I don't know what is available at their gemstone trader. I really don't. It's in Fano, right? Let's go take a look. I don't know if anything opens up. Doesn't hurt to give it an old look-see. Here we go. But yeah, that's on the list of goals. And obviously, I've still got a couple of other things I can do too. You know, I've been slacking on getting my Amaro mount, so I'm so close, but so far. My problem is I go so long without using some of these jobs, and like all of my remaining jobs are like tanks, right? That I forget how to play them, and that scares me. That scares me a little bit. Yeah, so they don't have anything. Let me take a look at old Gamer Escape. Fano Gemstone Trader. Let's take a look and see if they do actually get anything in Fano. And this is Nasil we're talking to, right? Okay. They do have a butterfly effect minion, but it doesn't look like they have anything. Huh. That's kind of odd. This hasn't been updated in a while, it looks like. Nasil trade. Oh, I was on fandom, not Gamer Escape. Go away, fandom. Yeah, it looks like the only thing that they really have is the Waka card. If I'm really wanting to round out my my triple triad, I guess. Yeah, they don't really have any housing items there, huh? That kind of sucks. I was really hoping to buy some stuff, huh? Rank 2, a Greatwood Planter. Oh, so they actually she does have some stuff that I don't see yet, but I don't know. Oh, I get it. That's unlocked through Fates, isn't it? Okay, see, it's been so long since I've done the shared fate thing that I guess like that is based on how many fates you've done. Okay, I see now. I see. Yeah, I'm like a ways off. I'm like a ways off, huh? Ah, that sucks. Okay, so you do really have to go through and do like 1,200 fates, huh? Oh man. Oh man, that hurts me a bit. I'm not gonna lie, that hurts me a bit. That's way more than I thought I was gonna end up doing. I was like, you know, if they did lower the cap, maybe this is something I can put as a goal. I don't know about that now. Maybe maybe knowing that I can buy things with it will make it a little bit easier to do it all. You know, the fact that you can sell the gemstone items, I think, might make it a little bit more palpable. Wow, that's... oof. There's all of the hopes that I just had. Okay. Well, you know, we'll get by. We'll do what we have to. Thankfully, I only have to do a couple more here in Raktika. I thought I'd done a lot more than this. I thought I farmed Raktika a little bit more, but I was doing some Kaikern stuff. But apparently that is not the case. But we'll make do. I'm getting gemstones. That's all that matters. And then we'll go take a look and see if it unlocked the Great Wood Planter or whatever that happened to be. There we go. Thankfully, it looks like everything's like a little bit easier. Like I'm not feeling like I'm like really struggling to get through all of these things, even with the level sync. So that's nice. They'll go fairly fast. Everything I'm guessing except for like the boss ones, huh? I don't know what the Forlorn Maiden does, to be honest. I see them pop up on the battlefield all the time, and I don't know what exactly they even do. So we're gonna take it down and see what happens here. Maybe. Hey, there we go. Yeah, does it like increase rewards or something like that? I really don't know. Really and truly. Guess we'll find out here in a second. Okay. Yeah, it didn't give me any more gemstones or anything, so I got no idea. I guess I'll just have to look it up later, huh? All right. But yeah, thanks for whatever you happen to do. Yeah, wow, that's gonna be rough, man. I feel like I don't. I had some good topics for today. I don't know if I have enough topics to do 1,200 fates with you all over time. That's a bit much. There we go. Here we go. Yeah, like I said, if you have any questions about housing, I mean, we can talk about it. I figured we'd at least round out the Fano, open up the Fano shared fate thing before heading off for today. So, you know, Q&A still open. I really had no plans on ending it or anything like that. There you go. I can't think of anything else that really popped up though. So we might take a look here at Twitter here in a second, just see if anything new is up. Just to explore a little bit. Here we go. See if there's any other housing drama. Yeah, I was looking at Zepla's Twitter, and she posted that thing about people being toxic over winning houses or losing houses. And yeah, it amazes me that that's still a thing. But I mean, given some of my experiences with roleplay lately, I guess I shouldn't be super surprised. Like, I've had a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of fun roleplaying on my old. I made a lot of new friends and just had a very good time lately doing it. But I've also had a couple of people in, you know, private tells and that kind of thing that have definitely been, you know, the kind of people that you post on Twitter being like, hey, don't do that. And maybe it's because of the type of character that I'm role-playing. I mean, you can leave that to your interpretation. It's not exactly hard to find out if you really want to know, I guess. But yeah, it's thankfully been like 90% good, and then the 10% awkward have been like really, really awkward. But yeah, it's overall been a good time. Yeah, it just amazes me sometimes the people in this game. I guess that's just the internet in general. You know, people will be people. There's always going to be like really socially awkward nerds everywhere you go. Doesn't matter what game or fandom. But yeah, I just kind of ignore them after a point. I saw a comment, saw a comment on my channel. Sorry to call you out like this, but I did see a comment like, "Hey, those ums are really distracting." It's like, sorry, man. It's just casual speech. If you know, if you want premium, no speech, you can have that available on my memberships when they open up. It's at the professional level speech is tier 2. I'm sorry, but no, it's just how I talk. You know, like it. Watch another YouTuber, I guess. I do try and get a little bit better when it comes to obviously the pre-made videos that I make. Like my talking the red stuff. That's when I sit down and do my old radio voice and the radio speaking that I did all throughout high school and competed in and that kind of thing. And I do try and cut down on the ums and whatnot there. But like, man, when it's just us hanging out, you know, if it's just a clip of me during a live stream, I don't worry about that kind of thing. It's just how I talk, and it's just casual chat, and that's just how people speak. You know, it's just how things are. You know, I don't want to get in the habit of making fun of people for their accents or anything like that. Like here in the Midwest, where I'm at in the Midwest, we say "warsh," right? You don't hear too much on the stream, but trust me, you hang around me long enough, or hear me listen to someone from my town come and talk with me, yeah, you're gonna hear the accent. It's nothing to apologize for. People speak different ways, and people have different accents and different tics and different speech. You know, it's one of the most important things that I think that I learned whenever I was studying English and going for my degree and that kind of thing, was taking a linguistics class. It's not something that I really thought that I would end up taking, but it was something that was kind of required for the course, and I really, really had a good time in it and learned a lot. And probably the most important thing that I learned in linguistics is, at least for English, right? English specific. There is no such thing as true English grammar. And it's very true. Grammar and language as a general rule, if you talk to linguists, a language is really anything with common speech patterns that can be understood among other people that speak it. That's really about it. So there are all kinds of tics in the English language and all kinds of tics of grammar and that kind of thing that that kind of apply, but they're still able to be understood even among other English speakers for the most part. Sometimes, you know, I wonder about what's going on up in Boston, but you know, we'll leave that we'll leave that elsewhere, right? But no, I mean, there's all kinds of different speech patterns and different ways of speaking and all kinds of different grammar that's used even within English language. You know, when people think of proper English, it's probably because it's taught as like a rote English. Do I really need? I mean, that does look cool, but it is a headband, right? I can't descent it. That's okay. Oh, it's leatherwork, all right. But yeah, there's a certain way of teaching English that's taught, and because of that, people think that there is a one true proper way of speaking of English, and it's based on essentially the white English rich men who wrote the popular books for a very, very long time. And you know, you have stuff like Strunk and White, their rule book for English and whatnot. But the thing is, like, when you really break it down, like there really isn't any proper form of grammar. Language is based more than anything based on where you grew up and who you grew up around. So even though the rule books say this thing, if you are writing a novel and you're from, you know, Minnesota, there's gonna be tics in that writing and tics in that in your characters and that speech that is very unique to you. And it doesn't mean that it's improper English, because as long as we can still understand it, then it is still language, right? If anything, having those ticks and maybe setting your book on your local area and including those ticks in it, it rounds it out, right? It rounds out what your characters feel like, makes them real people, and makes it easier to connect, makes them fully fleshed out and rounded. So yeah, when it comes to people complaining about speech patterns or tics or anything like that in comments, I just kind of laugh it off. And yeah, I'm not going to delete the comments or anything. I'm still appreciative that people are watching and have feedback. Sometimes there's feedback that I do need to take into account. I had to have feedback about audio levels and that kind of thing, and that kind of stuff is important. But sometimes you just kind of have to laugh at it. Like, I'm not going to be able to take out all of my ums whenever I'm just chatting with you guys, because I'm thinking faster than I'm talking, right? But yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. I think we'll go ahead and call it here. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any other questions, comments, or thoughts about what's going on with the housing situation after 6.3 and the new round of awards, feel free to let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, all of that good stuff if you want to know next time we're going to go live or anything like that. Again, I'm sorry I didn't have the webcam on today. I figure, if I'm going to start working on a VTuber mod, I might as well get used to not having a webcam on. It's kind of nice, to be honest. But yeah, I just felt it just felt like garbage. My sleep's all over the place right now, and I look like garbage. So yeah, it was kind of nice to be able to just chat and stream without having to worry about, acting for the camera, hey, do a little dance, that kind of thing. But I hope you had a good night. I hope you had a good weekend. It's a Monday. Don't let it get to you. I hope you have a very good week and things start going your way. I don't know if we'll be streaming tomorrow because of work and everything. It's going to be an evening training orientation shift, but it's just retail. I'm not worried about it. Again, like, subscribe so I can get out of retail. It's really all I can say. But outside of that, we'll have some more stuff planned for later on this week, hopefully. Alrighty, take care, y'all. Have a good Monday and have a good evening.